So this video is just a review about using citations. So what we want to do today by watching this video, we will understand that citations allow us to give credit to our sources and avoid plagiarism. We will demonstrate our understanding by creating our works cited page and in-text citations. So when we're talking about citations, what does that actually mean? A citation is information about a piece of writing, so an article, maybe a website, that tells who wrote it, what it's about, where it was published, and when it was written. If you can remember those 4 W words, who, what, where, and when, you should be able to put a citation together. Why are citations important? Why do we need to make them? Well, using citations shows evidence for your research. It shows that you didn't just make this information up. It shows which articles, which websites, which books you got your information from. Using citations gives credit to your sources. You're saying you're not claiming the work as your own. You're showing where it came from. You're acknowledging that other authors spent their time working on those sources. And those two things together helps you avoid plagiarism. We know that plagiarism is taking someone else's work and claiming it as our own. So by creating citations, we're showing where the work came from. We're showing that it's not our own work. We're using these different sources written by other authors. So if we're making an article citation, remember we want to know who wrote it, what it's about, where it came from, and when it was written. So the author tells us who wrote it, the title tells us what it's about, the journal or magazine name is where it was published, and the publication date is when it was published. So that means when did it actually show up? Was it the Time magazine of January 2017? Did it show up online in November of 2016? That's the type of stuff we're looking for. So as we're looking at our sources, we're looking for all these little different pieces of information, and those will go together to create a citation. When you're looking at your article, all that information is usually at the top, and a lot of times it's even labeled for us, which makes it easier. A lot of us are probably using websites also in our research. So to follow or to create a website citation, it follows the same format, our 4 W words, who wrote it, what it's about, where it was written or where it was published, and when it was published, just in a slightly different way, because websites are a slightly different format. So we're still looking for an author who wrote it. Sometimes this will be a person, sometimes this might be a whole group. Once in a while, there won't be anything that shows up at all. The web page name is sort of like a title. The web page name should relate to your topic. It should tell you what this information is about. The website is where this showed up. So for example, if I found an article, but it was on WebMD, WebMD would be the website. The publisher of the site may be the same as the website name. It might be a slightly larger group. And then of course we need a date. We need a when. When was this made? When was this written? When you're looking at websites, it can be a little bit more challenging to find the information. My best advice for that is to focus on the very top and very bottom of the page. That's usually where most of the information is. So it can be a little bit more of a challenge. It takes a little bit more of detective work. So we're going to look at a couple examples of putting together our citations. I have an article here, and below it, I've already created the citation for it. And remember, the citation tells us who wrote it, what it's about, where it was published, and when it was written. So if I look at this, this is the author's name right here. That's who wrote it. This section in quotation marks is the title, what it's about. Forbes is the magazine where it was published. And then the 16th of November is when it was written. So as long as I know those 4 things, I can use an online tool called EasyBib, and it will put this citation together in the proper order, author first, then the title. Some things have quotation marks, some things are in italics. EasyBib will do all of that, but I need to be able to find the pieces of information. So we're going to look at how that would actually work in EasyBib. So here's my article. Okay, is the NFL doing enough to prevent brain trauma? And here is EasyBib. If you just Google easybib.com, it will take you where you want to go. You will want to use the part that says manual cite because that lets you put in the different information that you have. And I'm not going to create the entire citation, but I just want to remind you, either show you or remind you kind of how this works. So we're going to skip this blue box here, and we're going to fill out what we know. So we're going to fill in those who's, what's, where's, and when's. So right here, the first thing I'm looking for is the article title. So when I look at my article, I know this is the title. It talks about my topic. It's towards the top of the page. It's in bigger print. So I could copy and paste that in there. The next thing EasyBib asked me for is the author, who wrote this. So I go back to my article, and right under the title, I have a person's name, and it says contributor. Contributor means they added to this information. Same thing as author, and they even use the word contributor on EasyBib, so I know I'm on the right track. The next thing I need to know is what website did this come from? All right, this came from Forbes. I can also see that in my address bar up here. And then I want to know if there's an additional publisher. So I would look through my website again and just make sure, is Forbes part of a bigger company? If it was, that's what I would add as my publisher. And then I want to know when this information was published. Electronically published means what date did this show up? So as I look at my article or my website right here, there's my date. So I would fill that into EasyBib. And once I have all of this filled out, now I can create my citation. Okay. The last little bit that I need to do, the date accessed, you can just use today's date for that. And once I click on this, it's going to give me a citation that's already created that's in this type of format right here. And so I can actually copy and paste that into my Works Cited page. So the Works Cited page is a listing of all of our sources that we're using in our paper. And they need to be in alphabetical order by author. You can see these are all in alphabetical order: Dean, then Ebert, LaRue, and Milken. And then you can see all of these long format citations, just like what we created in EasyBib. And the Works Cited page is what shows your teacher or your reader of your essay all the sources that you used in that paper. So as you're finishing up your essay, remember that your last page needs to be a Works Cited page, and it has all of your sources on it. You'll make those citations in EasyBib, and then you can copy and paste those into your essay. All right, the other type of citation that we need to talk about is in-text citations. In-text citations appear in the body of your paper or your essay. So the ones we just looked at, the Works Cited page citations, those go on their own separate page. They're a really long format. They talk about the author, the title, where it showed up, all of that information. In-text citations is a really short little citation that happens in parentheses after a direct quote that you pulled from one of your sources or a paraphrase from one of your sources. And the in-text citation is another way that we know that we're giving credit back to our sources. So if you need to make an in-text citation, you put it in parentheses. It must match the source information on the Works Cited page. And the way we do that usually is to just use the author's last name and then a page number. You can see an example here. So after this sentence, this was a direct quote from an article. There's a parentheses, there's an author's name, and there's a page. If you have already used a signal word or phrase in the sentence, like if you've already used the author's name, then you don't need to include it in the citation, and it would just be a page number. So that's the difference there. Here's an example of what that might look like in a paragraph or in a paper. So you can see after the first sentence, here's an author's name and the page number. You can see in the next sentence, here's again author's name and a page number. And then in this last one, since Hurt was already listed, they just listed the page number there. Okay. As we finish up talking about citations, I've got just a checklist for you, some things to consider. So as you're putting your essay together, you might go through this checklist and just make sure you have everything that you need. So make sure that I have an in-text citation in parentheses after each direct quote. Make sure that I have an in-text citation in parentheses after each paraphrase. And then I need to make sure that my in-text citations are formatted correctly. So they need to be in parentheses. They need to contain the author's name or source title and page number. So you'd want to look back at your works cited page, and whatever appears first on your listing, that's what would show up in your in-text citation. In the same way, you need to check over your works cited page. So you should have created a citation and EasyBib for each of the sources you're using. And then those should be listed on a works cited page at the end of your essay. The words works cited is at the top of the page. The citations are listed in alphabetical order. All of those good things there. So after you finish watching this video, a good thing to do would be to open up this checklist and just kind of go through and double check that everything that you need to have is already included.